Alex, Meryem, at different stages of your journeys, you have both made the very intentional choice of choosing Britain. And so tell us a little bit about the inspiration for that particular choice and the inspiration for founders and investors here and so many others that we hope to partner with in Sovereign AI to make Britain the home of the next generation of exceptional companies like yours as well. So Alex, do you want to kick us off?
Of course. Well, my journey started, I was fortunate enough to win a scholarship that brought me here from New Zealand, where I grew up. And I'd never been to Europe before, turned up at Cambridge and just had the most wonderful adventure, spending 3 or 4 years immersed in ideas and surrounded by amazingly talented people. And so that ecosystem was fantastic. I had a very short stint in Silicon Valley doing a few internships, but what was special to me in the UK was, and that brought me back here to start the company, I think was that quality of the ecosystem, the diversity and culture, I loved my experience at Cambridge. So I think it was a lot of the momentum from there that brought me into getting going here. And then everything came together very, very naturally. And I can't say it was entirely planned a priori, but what happened was one step led to another, but with a very clear end vision that we're still working towards today. But with a decade of progress, I'm really proud of what's come together here in the UK.
And people say that if you can conquer the chaotic streets of London, you can go anywhere with your Wayve car. So you've done exactly that, and London's been a good foundation, as I've learned on my Wayve journey over here as well, which has been very smooth. Meryem, what about you? Tell us about your intentional choice of Britain to build the generational company that we hope Doubleword becomes.
Well, we, like so many of the AI companies in this country, came out of the great universities that we have. So I met my co-founder at Oxford, and then my co-founder was doing PhDs at UCL and KCL. And so we really came from these research roots and research origins. Sounds similar to your story. And so we started here because we were here because of our university, and we stayed here mainly because of the talent. The talent density in the UK is pretty exceptional, and I think I would find it very difficult to hire and retain the type of team that we have if we're in Silicon Valley competing with the likes of OpenAI and Anthropic, etc. And so we've been able to create a really excellent team, but it's turned out along the way that being in the UK is also fantastic geopolitically when it comes to trading, as you were saying. So as a North American company, I would probably start by building in my home market and selling to American companies. You don't even need to think about the fact the rest of the world exists. The UK is strategically placed in that we have fantastic relationships with Asia, Europe, and America, and can really build globally from day one, but with exceptional talent here.
Super interesting. So one of the contemporary memes is that we have our very unique cultural moment right now here, where we're in a moment of Brit-maxing, as James consistently tells us. And so tell us what each of you thinks is the most distinct thing, not only about the fact that Britain is now achieving the sort of takeoff speed and scale of the best ecosystem in the world, but what is distinct in terms of the British values that might shape the flavor that you end up getting in the tech ecosystem here. I mean, for one, I consistently use this line that I feel like the science to slop ratio in Britain is consistently better than anywhere else in the world for a good reason, born out of our university context and the values that we have in Britain. What to you is the particular flavor of Brit-maxing here in the UK?
I think I saw this on the podcast that you did, The Rest is Money, that I watched today, where you talked about how in the US they have this conversation which is often above where their tech is, and that kind of pulls their tech up. In the UK, we've kind of got the opposite that you said, where often our national conversation is far below where we actually are as a country. And so we are actually in a much better place than I think the national conversation reflects us as being. And what this country seems to be exceptionally good at is the actual application of AI and the application of how we actually deliver this. So for example, Wayve with actually delivering autonomous driving, and we have so many fantastic AI companies in the pharmaceutical space and in the healthcare space, and we actually are very, very good at turning these things into reality. But the national conversation is so far behind what that reality is. And if we could flip it, just imagine what we could achieve.
I'd build on that because I think we do tend to bring humility and let our results do the talking. But my experience in the last decade is, I think I've really seen some quite material shifts in the ecosystem. And part of that is a natural ecosystem cycle that, for the historians in the room, you'll of course look at places like Silicon Valley and see them go through that growth. But I've seen an ecosystem grow that's very kind and welcoming. Many people in the room have helped mentor and grow me and Wayve, which I'm grateful for. But also seeing, say, capital structures evolve from the thriving early stage ecosystem that I think was there when we started. I think there's a lot of heat that's put on growth stage companies in the UK, but things are getting better. And whether it's the round of capital that we just raised, I'm seeing more and more of those growth stage rounds happen that enable companies to not take an acquisition route, but actually get to escape velocity here. And that ecosystem is growing. And then, of course, when it comes to leadership, not leadership that can build prototypes and early stage technology, but actually take things to global mass production. And I'm enjoying that, and the trajectory is only upwards from here.
Super exciting. One of the things that we've tried to do in how we've built up Sovereign AI is to genuinely listen to the ecosystem. And it's been really fantastic to see, I think, all the way from Secretary of State's leadership and enabling everyone in the team, James and Josephine and the team who've built everything, a remarkable contribution from the British Business Bank, building on a very deep expertise in underwriting and capital provision as well. And so we're here in listening mode. What would be one or two things that you would give advice to us on how Sovereign AI can be the best partners right across the board, not just in terms of capital, but in terms of compute, procurement, data, talent, and visas, and at the heart of it, trying to shift the cultural conversation in Britain on this as well?
I love the idea of bringing the speed of venture with the power of the state, because, I mean, we've seen it, government helping bringing us and our customers together, whether it's the interactions I've had with government in Germany or in Japan or in the US. I mean, it is really so powerful what can actually be done when you bring this together. I would call out to continue to invest in ideas that are going to be not possible today, but possible in the future, and that are contrarian. And I think if we are all debating about, oh my God, why is Sovereign AI investing in this? I think that's a really good thing. So I'd like to see, I'd like to see some ideas that really do shake up what's happening now. And also, not to be afraid to stand on the shoulders of giants and continue to build on top of great existing things, no matter where they are in the world, but go after some unique value that the UK or a certain team has a unique right to operate in.
So go contrarian and stick to what's unique. What about you, Meryem? What are your words of advice?
I think the most valuable thing about Sov AI is not actually the money, but I think it is the fact that the money is forcing you to listen. So good companies can find capital anywhere, but the fact that there is a pot of money, and that gives me a reason to talk to government, and it gives you an opportunity to listen, and we can start these conversations. So there are so many things that government could be really helpful for, but we can only tell you those things if we actually have that conversation. So for example, getting the right people in. I think there should be a national target that we have for recruiting AI researchers into this country, and that should be something we're really excited by, not driving net zero immigration. We should have a special pool of we want 1,000 AI researchers coming to this country, for example, is the type of thing that we might have a conversation with. Another thing that I've talked about is Britain is quite unique in terms of global countries in not picking its winners, and having government really take a step back when it comes to who ends up winning. China does it, the US does it. France is phenomenal at picking its winners. Like Macron is the best salesperson ever for Mistral. And so it would be fantastic if the UK government took a more proactive step in saying, we have these companies like Wayve, for example, that are really fantastic global companies, and helping you, introduce you to your customers and really helping them win. Because every other country is getting, the backing of their government. And so it's great to hear that we want more of an activist government, and, speed of venture backed by government is a fantastic.
Very, very on message. Well, look, the other thing I'll say here is what Meryem has said is about UK government not picking winners is actually an aberration in British history. Because if you look back at the Callaghan government, and obviously I'd make this claim about a Labour government, but the Callaghan government put 50 million into Inmos in Bristol, and Inmos, sold too early by Thatcher, was where the team came from in Acorn Risk. The BBC first procured from Acorn Risk. Acorn then said, that's too long a name. Let's change our name and have an acronym called ARM. And so I know Spencer's in the room from ARM Holdings as well. And so ARM has now become one of the biggest chip licensing businesses in the entire world, powering the future of AI as well. So we are only returning to our heritage as well. But look, especially in that context, we want people to build on the lineage of amazing entrepreneurs in the past as well. And so let's throw this forward 10 years. Wayve and Doubleword have become huge global businesses, conquered and built the future of AI. What are the kind of big ambitious things that we should look out from each of your businesses over the course of the next 10 years that we can get everyone excited about and fundamentally partnering with you on to make those successes?
So my goal is to make the cost of intelligence 100 times cheaper. And I think if you can make the cost of intelligence dramatically cheaper, it unlocks a huge number of things that you can do. For example, let's say that we could have 1 million PhD level intelligence beings working on every single type of cancer. And that unlocks a huge amount of potential. And so my goal is to be able to build the infrastructure that we can deliver intelligence just so much cheaper, and it's able to unlock so many use cases that are incredibly valuable to all of us.
I'll build on that. I like your goal of wanting to see $1 trillion company here.
That's my goal.
Yes. So I mean,
Britain's first trillionaire over here.
I mean, there's work to be done to get there. But look, I think that there's a multi-layer, venture that we can go build here with Wayve, from consumer vehicles to robo-taxis. We're going to see automotive is coming first in the embodied AI space, because we've got tens of millions of cars today that have centralized compute and sensors on them, access to data, regulation. I mean, it is a space that's happening now. But I think, we've seen what cognitive AI can do in the world, but physical industries is 70% of the world's GDP. And I think we're going to see similar disruption and acceleration due to AI in these spaces as well. And yes, we are in a working workshop, and so hopefully one of our autonomous cars doesn't look to come in here right now. But no, the point being is that all of these other physical verticals we're in, I think we will see embodied AI systems that can accelerate the work we're doing, allow us to delegate tasks to them, and to free up our time for what matters most. So as we see that, we are, like ARM, taking a licensing approach where we want to empower manufacturers and operators at a global scale. Some will choose to build AI themselves, but the vast majority will benefit from the platform that we can offer. So going from consumer vehicles to robo-taxis, through every other physical AI vertical, we want to be the intelligence layer across all of them.
So I want to close off this conversation on a final question, which goes back to what Meryem said, which is this narrative or cultural thing that Britain is perceived to have, that we don't back extreme ambition or tall poppies. And the thing I have felt is that that isn't an accurate diagnosis any longer of the country we're in, because we have amazing founders, investors, people in this room who shape the future of technology, who have boundless ambition. We then have kids growing up in this country who totally share that boundless ambition, increasingly because they see content from all over the world of what people have been able to do with the power of science and technology, sitting in their bedrooms, not necessarily from the best of economic backgrounds, but with boundless ambition to do things. And so we have the future generation, we have pioneers like people in this room, and all we need to do is grab the skeptical middle. And so, one ask of everyone in the room is, alongside the amazing jobs that you have, you are also shapers of the national cultural conversation around this. So grab the skeptical middle and convince them. But what are your words of advice on how you think we can change the national cultural conversation on this, the role that you think we can play in radically shifting what the future of Britain feels like in terms of our individual identity and our cultural identity as a country on technology?
I'll say something a bit controversial, because I'm not a government person and I'm not running a big multinational organization. I think the journalists in the room need to take a very close look at themselves and their colleagues. And I think they are so responsible for so much of the pessimism that is perpetrated in this country. Now, I hope it's not the technology journalists, because actually I found technology journalists to be on the more optimistic side of it. But actually,
straight into politics, Meryem. Welcome to the.
I would be an awful politician, because they would just pull this out and all the journalists would come for me. But I think so much of the mood of the country comes from what journalists write and from what their they think is important, and actually, speak to the people in this room, because I bet the majority of the people in this room are incredibly optimistic. They've chosen to build in Britain because they see huge amounts of potential in Britain. And so when you think about the stories you're writing, the stories your colleagues are writing, try to think, is this in the national best interest? And is this really reflecting what Britain is, or are we just in a bad mood today? That's that's what I would.
All right. You got a lot of votes in this room, Meryem. Alex.
I've maybe made some enemies. Sorry.
Yeah, I'd build on that and just say, get on with it. And we can talk about culture all we want, but I think culture is demonstrated by action. So to build on that, rather than to avoid harping on about negativity, actually, when I get criticism, I love hard problems. They're the most fun thing. And so if things are really challenging, when we started Wayve, we raised $1 million, and all of our competitors had just raised a few billion, and it seemed a bit crazy at the time. But I love those kind of challenges and adventures, and I think it's really just about getting on with it. And not everything needs to work. I think the majority of the ideas we've tried over the years actually fail, and we learn from them. But I think celebrating failure, getting on with it, and making progress 1% every day. This is the path to success. So that's the message I'd add to the very, very good one of, don't get sucked into the mood.
So with that motivation to get back to work, I'm going to close the conversation off. Thanks very much, Alex and Meryem. This has been brilliant. Thank you.